Okay, I'm going to go through the COVID information while we're waiting for others to join us. Good evening. As a preliminary matter, I am Tina Burgos, member of the Needham Human Rights Committee, and I will be chairing this meeting. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Sophia.
Yes, I can.
Carrie.
Yes.
Amelia.
Yes.
Belinda.
Yes.
Ashok.
Yes.
Bud.
Yes.
Marlene.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Needham Human Rights Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting is a webinar and will allow the public to comment. For this meeting, the Needham Human Rights Committee is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, I will afford public comment as follows. I will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once I have a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Hey, Jen. Hey, Cynthia. Okay, let me just mark this. Okay, so Katie, do we have public person, anybody tonight?
Yes, we have 2 members of the public, Micah Burnett and Seema Rathod.
Okay. Seema, would you like to introduce yourself?
I can move her over 1 second.
Hi. Should I just state my name and address, or?
Yeah, just and what brought you to the meeting tonight? Oh, I saw you last night.
Right. Thank you for allowing me to join. I live at 207 South Street in Needham. Moved here somewhat recently. I'm interested to learn about the work that the HRC does. At work, I'm part of the Diversity, Equity Initiative and Inclusion Initiative, and I'm really interested to hear about what's going on in Needham in this regard. Also, I was put in touch with Jen Howard by my friend Nada Ali, who I believe served on the Human Rights Committee a few years ago. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, Seema. And we also have Micah Burnett. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. If not, please correct me. Micah had requested some time tonight to present an issue that he's been working with. He is a Needham resident and is a member of Decriminalized Nature MA and also Bay Staters for Natural Medicine. So Micah, if you would like to present, you have 5 minutes to let us know what's going on, and then the committee can engage in questions and discussion this evening.
Yes, thank you so much. Hold on, let me just make sure my camera is on. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for giving me the time to speak. As Tina introduced me, my name is Micah Burnett. I'm a resident of Needham. So I have 5 minutes. When should I start? Is that now or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, well, again, thank you so much. My name is Micah Burnett. I'm a resident of Needham. I graduated Needham High School in 2020, and I just finished up my first year at the University of Vermont, studying environmental science and forestry. And I am asking the Needham Human Rights Committee to support a resolution that will do two things. The first is to allow adults to cultivate and exchange psychedelic plants for personal use. And the second is to make arrests for possession of controlled substances the lowest priority in drug law enforcement, and to instead prioritize rehabilitation and treatment for those struggling with substance abuse. A large body of research, much of which being done by Johns Hopkins, has proven psychedelic plants to be extremely effective at helping people overcome mental health issues such as depression, trauma, and addiction. They've been used safely in indigenous practices for thousands of years, and modern science has demonstrated they have little to no neurotoxicity. Due to the efficacy and power of these plants, only 1 or 2 doses in a lifetime is needed to reap long-lasting benefits. There are 3 primary reasons why this committee and others should support this resolution. The first is the opioid crisis. We have been losing 170 of our friends and neighbors to opioid overdoses in Massachusetts each month. Arresting community members struggling with addiction is counterproductive to our society. Arrests make treatment inaccessible and deprive people of family and the opportunity to live a healthy life. Ending arrests also holds strong implications for racial equity and justice. Black and Latinx people make up 60% of our state prison population for drug crimes, while only comprising 30% of our general population. This is a frightening statistic. The Oregon Criminal Justice Commission estimates that ending arrests for drug possession will reduce racial inequalities in arrests by 95%. Ibogaine, which is a West African psychedelic plant, has been shown to be one of the most successful treatments for opioid withdrawal. And a study conducted on 44,000 people using data from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health showed a significant decrease in opioid dependency and abuse linked to psychedelic use. Our vision is to allow trained therapists and counselors, educated religious institutions, and individuals to safely use these healing substances without fear of legal repercussions and the stigmatization of getting help. The second reason is depression and trauma. A 2020 Johns Hopkins study showed that psychedelic plants in a controlled setting can be 4 times more effective at treating suicidal depression than standard medication. I know too many people who have struggled from severe depression. I've had to watch my mom go through a horrible bout of depression and listen to some of my best friends open up about attempting suicide in the past, and I'm certainly not alone in this. Pharmaceuticals have failed too many people and only numb their pain. Creating a legal barrier to effective treatments prevents people from exploring all options when the standard solutions fell short. We must ensure that our loved ones are not risking arrest and facing social stigmas by seeking out these safe and naturally occurring medicines. And for our frontline workers who have been experiencing a tremendous amount of trauma this year, when they already experience PTSD at rates 5 times higher than the general public, We must give them access to these highly effective treatments for PTSD if they so choose. The third reason is accessibility. After walking around Needham Center and having conversations with community members about what they think about our mental health care system, one of the biggest criticisms I heard was a lack of financial accessibility. Powerful companies are trying to patent the use of psychedelic plants in a therapeutic setting. If they succeed in this, we would be paying upwards of $4,000 per session of psychedelic assisted therapy, and this number can reach close to $10,000. Many people cannot afford health insurance or the monthly cost of prescription medications already. We must decriminalize these healing plants so individuals, therapists, and religious organizations can use them freely and ensure accessibility no matter a patient's socioeconomic standing. Needham is a very well-respected town with financial wealth, a smoothly functioning police department, and a great education system, which I went through myself. We have influence. With the public position we as a community hold, there comes great social responsibility. I ask you, please support this resolution to end drug arrests and decriminalize psychedelic medicines, not only for us, but to set an example for other communities and the whole state. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to following up about this later. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Does anybody have any questions? Amelia?
Micah, thank you. It was an excellent introduction, and you did supply us with more in-depth information that we received as attachments for this meeting. Micah, have you approached other groups in town, other officials, the police department, the health department, the select board?
So not the select board. I have been emailing members of the public health board, and at least not receiving any replies from Mr. McDonald, who's the director. And I know members of my team on Bay Staters have been reaching out to the chief of police without any responses. So we have been, reaching out to other groups in town.
Cynthia?
I was going to ask exactly the same question, and perhaps one thing we could do as the Human Rights Committee is encourage the Board of Health and the police department, and another person you may have been in touch with is Denise Garlick, because at the state level, she's been very involved with questions around the use and legalization of different kinds of drugs that can be used in a medicinal way. So I meant to say thank you for your concern and the way you presented it. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely be in touch with Denise Garlick, and thank you so much.
Marlene?
Yeah, thank you, Micah, for your presentation. I'm just curious if you have any local people who have signed on or groups. If not in Needham, where else in the state have you gotten an endorsement?
Well, from, I guess, like official public groups, there has not been much other endorsement other than the grassroots organizations, which I've been working towards decriminalization. However, Somerville, Cambridge, and Northampton as cities, and soon Boston is voting on this. They have already decriminalized the use of psychedelic plants and deprioritized drug arrests. So cities in Massachusetts have already been engaging in this.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Marlene, this is Bud. Thank you, Bud.
Hi,
Thank
Bud.
you for your. Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Marlene actually asked the question that I was about to pose, so thank you for the response.
Okay, anybody else? Micah, we really appreciate your time tonight. Your presentation was fantastic. Give us some time to go through all the materials that you sent. And also I did find both websites that I certainly personally want to go through and take a look. If you need anything else from us going forward, or if we can think of any other things that we can do to assist you, just continue to reach out and keep us posted, okay?
Yes, thank you so much. And if anybody wants any more resources, I'm happy to point you guys in the right direction of some reputable places.
Marlene.
Thank you.
It sounds like Micah is looking for an endorsement from us, so we will bring this up later, right? We will continue.
Yeah.
I just want him to know.
There's a lot of information, I think, to digest, so we need to.
Right. I just
Yeah.
want him to know it's not just like, thank you for coming, goodbye, but that we will
Right.
still think about it. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Micah, so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, this is a last minute agenda item. Do we have enough people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So sort of it started with, and Amelia and Cynthia, correct me if I'm, and Marlene, if the genesis of this is, I'm getting this incorrect. NDI was sort of the impetus for the George Floyd vigil. Is that correct? And it just sort of spiraled into pulling in different groups within the community to commemorate the anniversary. The event was really pulled together over the last, I would say 36 hours, 48 hours, something like that. So that's fun. And I want to vote on whether or not we want to sponsor the event. The event is going to be on Tuesday night. Carrie, I will send you, there's a save the date right now. They're finalizing sponsorships and just all of the details. So I don't have the final flyer yet from Julie Reich, I believe is putting that together, but I can at least email you the save the date. If that could go up on our Facebook page, that would be great. Tuesday night from 5:30 to 6, I believe. It's a family event. A couple of speakers are going to be there. I believe there's going to be 9 minutes of silence. Is that correct? So that's happening pretty quickly. And I think Amelia's also, are you working on the news flash as well?
Yes.
Was that decided on last night?
Yeah. Well, I will check. I wanted to find out if we would support it before I asked Cindy Sincata to send a news flash. So
yeah, apparently we are. I was reading the materials today, and lo and behold, we are a sponsor. But we need to vote on this first. So, if I could have a motion to support the sponsorship, Marlene.
I move that we sponsor the memorial commemoration. I think we're calling it that rather than a vigil, on Tuesday, the 25th.
5th. That's correct.
Yeah, 5:30, and they've already gotten the permits. So just so people know that the town has already approved the permits.
I would like to second the motion. It's Bud.
Okay, so let's take a vote. Julie?
Yes.
Marlene?
Yes.
Amelia?
yes.
Ashok?
Yes.
Sophia?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
And Bud?
Yes.
Okay, so the sponsorship to support the George Floyd commemoration, is that correct, Marlene?
I came up with the wording and I can't remember what it was. Memorial commemoration or something like that. Yes, memorial commemoration.
Okay, has been passed. We have passed this. We are officially a sponsor now, Amelia. So go ahead with the news wire, the news flash. Thank you guys. I'm sorry that was a last minute add-in, but as I said, this came together very, very quickly over the past day and a half. The discrimination complaint process that Marlene, yes, Cynthia, I'm sorry.
This is about the observance. And I know we've been trying to find ways to connect with the town, and obviously somebody had to talk to the town to get the permit to be there. But it occurred to me, this is a situation where, you know, Katie is here, that we can think about what are ways that the town could be involved to make sure, for instance, that we inform and invite select board members. Do we reach out to the police chief and the police department to know that they're welcome, not just to come and help with safety, but come to be part of it? And I thought, before we go on to the next item, that this is a moment where we might be able to go deeper in our connection with the town, if that's okay to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that the select board is aware, because I heard from Marianne Cooley today. Unfortunately, she's going to be traveling, so she won't be able to make it.
And I told Dan Matthews, I had a conversation with him about something else, so he knows. And it was Smriti Rao who got the permit she's from EJN.
Katie.
Yeah, Cynthia, thanks for making the suggestion. I'd just say, you know, if the, just clarity on if you want the select board members or the police chief to give remarks or just be welcome to join in attendance. And I'm happy to relay that you all wanted to extend an invitation as a group. I just want to be clear that from the event organizers that I'm offering them the right framework of what their participation would be.
I think it's attendance at this point, and the organizers are deciding who the speakers will be. And there will be some student speakers, hopefully.
And to put it in a very positive way, that we really want them to be part of the town, that we all are part of the town, and not kind of, we don't want to see this group or that group because they're political or they're this way or that. So I think this is an opportunity for our part as being sponsors to say to the organizers, we want to be sure that all the town people especially are invited to be there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we will probably get a little bit more into that relationship building when we have our discussion about police. Okay. But I agree with that. And Katie, if you could extend the invitation, that would be fantastic.
Well, I just encourage the organizers to extend it as well, since obviously they'll be deciding the details as it sorts out.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
So the discrimination complaint process that we have been working on, we had another meeting, God, when was that, you guys?
2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah.
So we're just continuing to refine the process. We're starting to really dive into more of the nitty gritty, the details. You know, initially it was just sort of what the overview is and what this should look like based on other organizations that we have seen and researched. Now we're trying to figure out the details as they pertain to Needham. Amelia, Marlene, and Cynthia met with Chief Schlittler about the process. So if the three of you want to give us a report on the discussion and how that went and next steps.
Amelia, why don't you start?
I thought it was a very positive and productive discussion. We simply started from scratch and engaged in a conversation in a very relaxed but interested way. And it was nice because we were all former colleagues. John was the police liaison for maybe 10 years that I had been on the Human Rights Committee, or less, about that amount of time. I think it was a nice example of relationship building in that we all came to the conversation with a common goal, and that is to somehow meet the needs of people in the community who have issues and need to talk, and they need some official feedback or support or confirmation, and they don't know where to begin. And that's where we were at. I think we were at the very beginning. You know, what do we do as a Human Rights Committee, and exploring this as a role that we originally had in 1995, I think it was, or 97. And for some reason it stopped. And I think informally we have been participating in having conversations with people, but very few. And all the time I have been on this committee, there really was not anything official. We had no forms. We simply discussed issues and found resources. We directed people to other, for example, maybe the superintendent or perhaps the chief of police. But this was minimal. It was not a formal process. But I thought that we explored where we needed to start in pursuing this, not just reinventing the wheel, but thinking about the situation now in Needham, particularly with the rapid response initiative and how that might be related, because there is some overlapping. So it's going to be very complicated. I think what I appreciated most was some of the feedback we got from John about the precautions that we have to take in terms of what our roles will be and how much authority we will have in responding, not only in discussing and helping people resolve some issues, but even inviting them to a meeting. For example, if it's a criminal offense, if it's related to a criminal offense, we should not be inviting people to a Human Rights Committee meeting for many reasons. But anyway, Marlene and Cynthia, what do you recall?
Yeah, I thought John was very supportive, and he's going to contact, at our suggestion, some other chiefs of police to see how they're handling it. He didn't know the Arlington chief, but we mentioned that because we had heard how good their relationship was. So it sounded like he was going to contact a couple, maybe Naacp too. And it was, as Amelia said, you know, we know him, so it was very comfortable, and he was very open and accepting for the idea. He just said to go carefully and to go slowly. And he was, you know, very clear, and we are not interested in getting involved in anything that's a criminal case. So we need to be clear that it's not criminal. And I don't think that's what's going to come to us anyway. I think criminal cases generally just go right to the police. People already know that, but it was good to be reminded of that. So I thought it was a really good beginning, and I think it was really good that we did that. Cynthia, I don't know if you have anything more to add.
Yes. How do I not ever? We first got started with looking into the rapid response team by inviting Jamil Adams, who had started the Natick Freedom Team. And it turns out fairly recently, they've started a team in Wellesley based on that. And our chief had not been aware of that. And Wellesley and Needham are very close in a lot of ways. And so he's going to be talking with the three chiefs. And he said, you know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you find a model that works somewhere, fine, to try it, and we can always change it. But I said to him, what did he think from his point of view? What did we need to have it? Because police chief or representatives there are a critical part, a key part of making this process work. And he said, not surprisingly, trust. And I felt that was it may be an obvious thing, but it's something really important. And the whole over zero training, a lot of that talked about developing response networks and who you can go to when something happens, and how do we empower groups that have not been at the table or often not heard. But we have to also think about how we work together with town officials and be careful not to other them and say only the people who aren't town officials are the real representatives, or whatever kind of words might be used along the way. And I think the Human Rights Committee is a very important part of the process, since we are also part of the town, but charged to represent people in a different kind of way than maybe some of the other town officials. Some years ago, when we started looking at what was happening in Natick, I remember talking to him and he hadn't been aware of what was going on. So I think everybody is more aware now of the need for this, and it feels like a good point for us to be moving forward with our taking some part of this process.
How did you guys leave things? Are there sort of next steps or follow-up with him? Amelia?
I think we wanted to come back to the committee and proceed as a group, knowing that we need to communicate with John. But I think we're at early stages of conceptualizing what we want to do as a starting point. So, but he knows that we will be in touch with him, and as we take each step along the way, and he will be in touch with us too after he. If not, we'll contact him after he has conversations with the 3 police chiefs that he is going to contact.
Okay.
Sorry, Cynthia.
I know that Nicole Argo, who was involved with putting things together in a larger sense with the response network, had spent time talking with him too. So that I think it's happening in different areas. And I'm looking over here at Belinda, that he told us that Belinda is a key person in this process, that as the civil rights officer for Needham. I see.
Oh, and it's difficult. I training Tuesday, so it's a little time to get into the role, what's required of me. But going back to the chief in the meeting that he had with the 3 of you, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with him regarding that meeting, but I have no problem reaching out to him and seeing where he's at, reaching out to the police chiefs. And if he hasn't had time, I in fact could reach out to the agencies too that he's speaking of to see if they're what their process is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, he said that you were a key person and that he meets every week with the lieutenants, including you, so that it's wonderful that you're already part of the Human Rights Committee. So as this evolves.
yeah. So I'll have further conversation with him.
Great.
Marlene?
No, that's great. I was going to say the same thing that Cynthia said and that Belinda said. So we're happy that Belinda's here and the role that she plays in the town and on our committee.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Belinda. We appreciate it. Aside from that piece of it, we're also in the process of trying to put together a form. Right, Julie? Is that correct?
Yep, I'm working on that ahead of our meeting. We have another subcommittee meeting next week, so I will
Tuesday.
present it to you guys at that point.
Okay.
We're trying to
And
email it out before the meeting even.
That's great. I'm trying to get in touch with town council with just to make sure that what we're doing is legal. So we're trying to schedule that, right, Katie?
Yes, the ball's in my court on that. So it won't be before your next subcommittee meeting, but I'm hoping that we can lock down a date for you.
Okay. Julie, Marlene, am I missing anything else with regards to the update of where we are at this point?
No, I think you represented it correctly.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Our next meeting is Tuesday. So if anybody wants to join, let me know. The agenda's posted now on the town website, and I can send you guys a link, a Zoom link.
Tina, what time is that meeting?
1 o'clock. The next item on the agenda is the general inbox. Amelia, thank you for taking the time to woman that. It sounds like we need a bit of a process though, because things come in. I'm sure it's a lot to handle managing all of that. So if you just want to kind of talk about what you're looking for as far as support, or if we can try to figure out a process to make things a little bit easier to try to spread out the power amongst all of us.
Actually, I didn't mind doing it. We don't really get that many requests from the public. I think there are 3 pending, and Micah is a good example. About 3 weeks ago, we received a message on our Gmail account, I think the problem is I don't mind doing it, and if somebody else would like to do it, fine. But I think that's a position that we need to think about as that somebody on the committee should take in the future when we start thinking about duties and responsibilities that we're going to share. I think the only thing is, and maybe we could do this, we don't have to do it at this meeting, but the problem is that every time there's a new chair, or if there's someone like myself who hasn't used the Gmail account for a long time, we can't get in. And
I got locked out.
I spent hours, several months with Google trying to get in. And then I figured something out. Ashok opened the account for us. And Ashok, I believe that the phone number, the key phone number that they want is yours. And they have, I don't know if you've been receiving a lot of messages that people are trying to break into our account over the last year, but this is the reason why. So maybe offline, we could talk about how we could change that. Or does anyone know? Carrie, might you know something about the Google accounts, Gmail accounts? When somebody new wants to get into a group Google account, they're asked questions, and if you don't give the right answer, you get in a loop and you can't get in.
It's like a third-party authentication. So I tried to get in a few days ago. I had to I cleared out my cache. I just logged back on. I didn't recognize the phone number. I had the password, but it was asking me for more information to verify. And of course, my cell phone isn't hooked up to the account. So then I eventually just got locked out.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. So what Google account is this?
This is a Gmail account for the Human Rights Committee that Ashok set up many years ago. And Lena and I were part of that. And then Jen, how did you get on when you became chair? Mysteriously, you became connected. How did you do that?
I don't know. I think somebody gave me the password.
No, it's more than a password. They ask you all kinds of questions, particularly a key telephone number.
So they must have set up like a 2-factor authentication type of situation. So as long as the original person who set it up is still somebody we like, if it was you, it's going to send a verification code. I've mentioned in the past, and I still think that like the Google situation is something we should take advantage of. I do everything in Google, and just keeping like everything from meeting minutes to agendas to contact information, like using Google Drive and using the Google Calendar, I think would be very much to our advantage. I'm happy to help facilitate that if we can get access to it back. Did we lose access to it?
No.
No, we have.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's a great tool, actually. It's a central location where everything kind of lives, especially in a time where, we're not necessarily meeting in person, like all important documents can be saved into the Google Drive, and the people who need access to those particular folders can be given access to it. It's a great way to kind of keep everything sort of in one place. And the other wonderful thing about it is as people leave and move on and new people come in, you're just kind of transferring the ownership of the drive. You don't have to necessarily set up anything new, like it already exists, if that makes sense.
So Carrie and Amelia, I can share the phone number and you can take from there. So yes, I did set it up. It was such a long time ago. And yes, a couple of times I did see those messages, but I didn't know what to do with it because I had no idea. I was trying to, get into it. So in future, if somebody wants to get into it, please send me an email.
Reach out to you,
or reach out to me, and I can maybe with Tina or Carrie or Amelia, I can share my phone number.
Carrie,
I just put it in the email. I send it to it's my home phone number, so it's okay.
Oh, it's not even a cell phone. Okay.
No.
Carrie, I
So
think
what-
that is great. And could I just say one thing, Tina? The reason I mention this is that I think it's important if the chair is not looking at the email, which we used to do in the past, and that is so time consuming, at least you need to check periodically just to see the threads, because it's very difficult to, I've tried to give you some information, forwarding some of it, but it gets very complicated. So if you could just get to the site and whoever is chair in the future, that would be easier.
Carrie, do we need the two-step process to get in?
No,
Because
we can turn that off. We can definitely turn that off because I really think, and I'd be happy to work with you, Tina, to help kind of set this all up. But I really think there should be folders and things that are shared amongst the entire committee. And I'd be happy to help anybody who doesn't know how to use it or access it. I've done a lot of training courses on how to use Google Drive and share folders and that type of stuff. But it's just an easy way to say, oh, I want to go look at the meeting minutes from last month or the month before, or I want to go look at the agenda. Like it just all lives in one place. Like it's super, super easy. If you just save that shared folder to your bookmarks or on your home screen of your phone or whatever device you use, it's just so easy to just kind of access it and reference it. It just makes you no longer have to like dig through emails type of thing.
Yeah, it's great. I use it.
So
at work.
I'd be happy to help you set that up and get that a little more organized.
Okay, I'll touch base with you on that. In the meantime, Ashok, can you turn that two-step factor verification thingy off?
Yeah, I'll reach out to Carrie or figure it out how to, put it off.
Okay, thanks.
Do we, I hate to even say these words, but are there any like issues with open meeting laws or anything if it's not on, I don't know, a public email address?
Hello, Katie. Tell us.
But the email address is public.
I guess that's what I'm wondering. I just was started to think about this in the context of like the complaint process and stuff. Like it's a pretty informal way that people have right now to get in touch with us, but we don't necessarily use that email publicly, or we don't publicize it, I think, in a lot of ways. So like I'm trying to think of how people get to us and whether it's okay for them to be connecting with us on a Gmail as opposed to like a town account.
We don't have a town account.
Right. But I don't know if we should, maybe.
This was approved a long time ago when Ashok set this up.
Yeah, I mean, even if we do get a town account, I don't think it should take away the organization of our, we can easily make whatever town person needs to have access to it, have also access to it, but it's just more of a, instead of passing around an old fashioned 3-ring binder, it's like existing in a Google account, that's all.
Yeah.
We should
Jen.
make that email address available because Micah contacted me through my Facebook Messenger and I didn't want to, the only way I could reply to him was to make him part of my Facebook network, and I did that, and then I blocked him because I really didn't know who he was or anything. But people don't know what the email is, so we really need to put it or whatever we're using out there.
Katie,
So just to Jen's original question, and thank you for raising it. So there just two considerations. So your Gmail system was approved, that predates me, but Carrie, what you said is correct, as long as we have access, because all of those files are public records. So if we
Sure.
are ever asked for them, we have to be able to access them and provide them. So that's under the public records law. And in terms of open meeting law, Jen, as long as you are using it as a file system, like Carrie suggested, which I think is very efficient, you just can't use it to deliberate. So you can't be co-editing documents, you can't be deliberating through the Google platform. That is not happening during a posted public meeting. But if it's a file system and a way to share information and make your lives easier, then yes, there are no issues there. I will say we get a lot of questions all the time across boards and committees about having at needhamma.gov email addresses, and I think that conversation is going to continue for a long time if boards and committees have to use them, if they can use them. So I'd say for now, use the system you have. It seems to be working, and if the policy gets updated across boards and committees at a later date, then we'll just have to address it then.
Thanks, Katie.
Amelia, did you have anything else?
We used to have a flyer years ago with our email address, the Gmail account address. That's when we met people in person. So maybe in the future, that might be another. We would pass up flyers that had a table, a display table with our information about the Human Rights Committee. Marlene, did you?
Marlene?
Yeah, someone has a bird. Could you just?
Whoever has the bird, mute.
Mute your bird, please. I wanted to say, I think that you can go from the town human rights website when you find human rights, and our Gmail account is there. And I think that's how most people get to us.
Yeah.
So it is going through the town. So it's, that's just a point of information.
Anybody else? Okay, so Carrie, I'll touch base with you about setting that up. And then if you guys could just remove that extra layer of protection so I can get in there, that would be awesome. Okay, thank you. This is going to be a short one. The Needham Accessible Reservoir Trail renaming. So this was discussed last night during the NDI meeting, and apparently David Snowgrad's family does not want it to be named after him. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly? Because it's not in the spirit of who David was. He does not want to be, he would not want to be the attention or the focus of this this trail renaming. So I don't, is there anything that we need to do to?
That's what they said last night, which really surprised me because I thought the whole process was involving Mary Grace Summergrad all along the way. So it just surprised me that that was being learned at this point, but it does.
It sounded like Rebecca Drill had spoken with her. Is that correct? Is that what?
Yeah, somebody had spoken with her. Just surprised because months ago when we were trying to figure things out, but maybe people just change their mind or come to an awareness, but I'm not surprised because David would not want, I could see them feeling that. So it means we don't really have anything, I guess, to do about it.
Katie.
The name proposed to the select board for consideration was the Amity Path or the Amity Accessible Trail, and variations of attaching David's name or not. So I guess if anyone on this group does have thoughts or strong opinions about use of the word amity or amity path, even if it has no individual's name attached to it, I'd love to hear those thoughts, and because they are concluding this at their Tuesday select board meeting. So, but if nobody feels strongly, I can relay that as well.
Amelia?
At one of the last NDI meetings, people did not want the accessible piece as part of it, and just the focus on amity. And I think that is still where most people stand in NDI. Although at the time we were thinking about how it related to David's work and his role in the community, and it really was racial justice and rather than accessibility. But I think I could check again if you, or I could ask NDI folks to contact Kate or whoever is in charge if they have other. I think we all had that opportunity, and many people did share their perspective.
Marlene?
I agree with just keeping it with amity. I think sometimes we try to include everything and then it waters down everything. So if we're just, focusing and calling it the amity, I personally think that makes sense.
Does anybody else have any feedback for Katie on this? Okay, great. Nuari, Jen, since Marcus is not here tonight, do you want to give us an update, please?
I don't think that there is much of an update from our last meeting. We were scheduled to meet next Monday. Sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar, but I think we haven't had a meeting yet in May. And the one that we were going to have got rescheduled because it sounds like that Marianne, Marcus, Kate, well, I guess maybe Katie, you might be able to tell us more. Kate and Katie are working on some kind of planning process that was not ready to be fully discussed at Nuari this coming Monday. So the meeting got rescheduled. So I actually don't really have anything more to report, I don't think, from Nuari. Katie, can you speak to anything about what else was going on?
No, that covers it. Just at the last Nuari meeting before town meeting, there was discussion about adding new members, charting the path for the next year ahead. So we had a lot of prep work to come back to the group with some thoughts to react to. And we just didn't feel like we had enough time to give it the time and energy to bring something back to the group for discussion. So June 7th is the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll definitely put that on the next agenda for follow-up after that meeting. Thank you, Jen. Rapid Response Network. It's been a lot of talk about this tonight. Katie, anything going on with that? I know the grant is due on Tuesday.
Yeah, for those that might not know, Nicole Argo and Beth Pinels, on behalf of NDI, I believe, is putting in a grant to the federal government, a Homeland Security grant to help launch the network, to create some trainings. So I guess the only update on my end is that they had talked with us, and Kate provided a letter of support on behalf of the town. And I know they had reached out to the police department, the school department as well, for those letters of support. So we hope it's successful.
And as Amelia had mentioned, Nicole was at our last subcommittee meeting for the discrimination complaint process. That was very helpful to have her there because she's great with helping to flesh out ideas. Again, it's going to take some time to sort of figure out where we intersect and how we can support one another. That's going to be an ongoing conversation, regardless of whether or not they get the grant. Nicole is very confident that they will find the funding somewhere. They're developing a really strong framework with this grant because this federal grant seems to be very laborious and they have to, cross all their T's and dot all their I's. So the process is really being thought through very carefully. And once they get a framework for that put together, that's something that we'll be talking to them about to make sure that the discrimination complaint process works hand in hand with what they're trying to accomplish. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about that? No, okay. The Indigenous, yes, Cynthia, sorry.
Those of us who were, and Tina was there too, at the NDI meeting last night, I think it was very exciting to hear how comprehensive the proposal is, with Beth Pinels involved and Joanna Allen Willoughby, that there's a component for youth resilience and a component for working with families. And it's, I think, really exciting. And hopefully at some point we get to see the summary part. I don't know whether that would be a document that could be shared with all of the Human Rights Committee, because she said she shared it. It's not in the final form yet, but when the proposal goes in, if we could see a copy of the summary.
Anything else? Okay. The Indigenous Peoples Day Initiative, Amelia and Cynthia, do you guys want to report on that? We can talk about the school committee. And then next steps.
Cynthia, we could do it together.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. Go ahead, Amelia.
Well, Fernanda and Nick are just delighted and very pleased and satisfied and received a lot of praise from the subcommittee that has worked with them. They're not sure. We ended the meeting, which was a couple weeks ago, and they're going to think about next steps. They're not sure what they want to do next and what the next step will be and how far they want to go. Fernanda, I think, is she a sophomore, Cynthia, or will she be a junior in the fall? And Nick was an 8th grader. He'll be first year.
She'll be a junior, I think.
He'll be a junior. Okay. Well, anyway, we did mention, we emphasize that if they wanted to pursue the route to present something to the select board, so the town of Needham would change it as a national holiday, that they need to look at the guidelines that Katie presented, and they were very appreciative of that. I don't think they're ready to look at that right now, but a lot of the things they're doing is from that list of guidelines, and I think they're beginning to move in that direction. But it will continue. There'll be a meeting. I think they want to get through the end of the school year, as I'm sure Sophia and Jared want to do. And then after that, we will revisit and maybe in the summer have a meeting again to continue a discussion.
I'd say there are 2 more things that Julie Reich, who's been providing a lot of sort of technical assistance and support for Fernanda and Nick, that she's been in touch with the statewide group where there's a link of towns and movements throughout Massachusetts that we can learn from. And the other thing that came up over and over again is the idea of change of the holiday has importance to it, but the larger importance is, or goal is, education to make people in the community aware of what the history is of Indigenous people in our country and in this area, and to hopefully have some shift in people's understanding of the relationships that went on in the past, and why people want to change to Indigenous Peoples Day, not just the product. But I think people were very, very pleased on the school committee, for those of us who were able to see it and hear their responses. And that this is one of the few times that the adults who are involved, we are truly, I think, listening to the young people's leadership.
That's great. Does anybody have any other, any questions or comments? Okay, thank you guys both for that. Jen brought up was something that she wanted to add to the agenda, and I think we have sort of talked a little bit about this. Revisiting the police community forum. Jen, if you just want to talk about the genesis of this and sort of what your thoughts are and moving forward with some programming.
So I'm kind of I've got two things kind of rattling around in my brain about this. One of them is the program that we talked about a couple months ago, where we were gonna kind of try to zero in on the policing legislation that passed in the State House. I'm trying to remember now when the heck that was, because it feels like, was it last summer or like last fall? And we talked a couple of meetings ago about having working with Denise Garlick's office to try to do like a community education forum about like, this is what the state law is.
Jen.
I still think that that would be a really interesting forum for the community. But I have also been thinking about what transpired at town meeting a couple weeks ago with the questions around I don't know, the promise by the select board last summer to try to hold some community discussions about policing, and that kind of the disconnect between what has gone on since then and what the community still seems to be asking for. And so I guess I'm bringing up a question to you guys. You know, we could stick with our original kind of education plan, or do we want to try to take an opportunity to try to bring, I don't know, some people to the table together to have the kind of community conversation that that people in town were requesting at the town meeting. I feel like we're in a place where, from my perspective, that, you know, a year ago, or not much more than, or a little less than a year ago, I guess, when we were kind of all reeling from the aftermath of what happened to George Floyd, you know, that was when there was a lot of calls to have some community discussions about it, about policing. I think that the select board, you know, quickly assembled Nuari and kind of, from what I could tell, kind of was like thinking like this is going to be the vehicle for those community conversations. And we've had a couple of listening sessions through Nuari, and a couple of sessions specifically with Chief Schlittler, but there hasn't been a lot of space to have like actual dialogue. And so it seemed to me, listening to the town meeting a couple weeks ago, that was the piece that people were still really feeling like it hadn't happened yet. And so I kind of thinking again about our unique role among all of the different kind of groups advocating for equity in town, that this might be an opportunity for us to try to host some kind of community discussion that is less like a public hearing, more like an actual dialogue, something akin to, you know, the kinds of discussions that we've helped to lead at My Neighbor's Table, or with the Over Zero workshops that happened last fall. So using kind of a different model to get at some of those discussions outside of a public hearing kind of thing.
So I'm wondering if we could do both. I talked to Chief Schlittler a few days ago just to introduce myself as the chair of the HRC, because I don't know him. And given that we're working on a lot of things, particularly the discrimination complaint process, that is really going to involve the police department if we want to be successful. So I just wanted to, as I've been doing with everybody in town, introducing myself to people to make sure that, I'm starting to develop relationships. We talked about the police reform, and it just sounds like there's just very heady and there's a lot to go through, and it's still a work in progress. Belinda, if I'm giving misinformation, please step in and correct me. But it sounds like, according to him, they won't be able to sort of work through all of these things, the reform, the policy, until probably early to mid fall. Is that correct?
It is quite involved, a lot going on. And I think a lot of what they have the avenue to do it yet. Or so to report to the community would be an injustice. We want to make sure that we are concrete everything that we're on. There are dates that need to be abiding by certain things. It's changed so much already within our policy, just to get a jump on everything. We are actually working on what we know is going to change. And then the side note, the meetings, the chief has spoken of that. Is one of the goals is to start meeting stakeholders and just conversation. So there's a lot that's being worked on. Fortunately, it doesn't move fast. We love that it did, but everything is going to take time. But we are working on it. Priority of ours.
He had mentioned that maybe in the September, he could speak to us, the committee, to really just help us understand what this reform is, because there's a lot of it. He said, you're more than welcome to go ahead and read it, but I wouldn't be able to get through most of it. And he's also planning on, he had tossed around an idea of like a citizens police academy to talk to the community about reform and what's happening in the department. So I feel like once that information and that education is out there, then maybe it makes sense for us to reach out to the community for further questions, issues. I would just hate for us to go into a conversation, have community discussion without people not really understanding the full picture and what's happening.
Exactly. And engaged within the community on that. We used to have the citizens police. I started here, so 20 years. And then I think due to funding, but we do a junior police academy, that citizens police academy, give more insight as to what go through and how we can.
What are people thinking about that?
Only thing I'm wondering, Tina, I mean, it seems like it would certainly make sense to wait until everything is digested in terms of what reforms have happened. But I think that initial piece of inviting some dialogue and conversation is something that we could do without having all that other information so far. I think especially because hearing folks' concerns, I don't know, it seems very like there's already a lot of things percolating separate and apart from what those reforms would be. I don't know if anybody caught the select board meeting a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, where EJN came to report their findings that they had put together. And what struck me in the conversation was that it felt like that folks have gotten kind of so attached to their positions within the framework of conversation that we're kind of losing sight of the common interest that we all have in trying to make sure that people in Needham every person in Needham feels safe and supported. And so I don't know, I was like listening to them kind of go back and forth, and it felt like there were we were just missing a real opportunity to kind of identify what are those things that we all already agree about, and where are the things that people are still concerned about that we need to talk about, fleshing out more as a community. I don't know, it seems like the longer that we wait to have this conversation, the more solidified people get in their position as being like us versus them. And, we aren't some like huge, big super PACs, like we're neighbors trying to figure out what the best route is for the town. And I feel like the longer that we wait to have the dialogue, the more people just kind of simmer in their own heads with it. I don't know.
Marlene.
I attended that meeting and felt really bad because I felt like there was no real conversation after the presentation. And I sort of felt like they were chastised a bit for even bringing it forward. And I think they made some good points, and they were not saying that they wanted to take this on at all. They were saying, it's the select board, it's the town that should be taking this on. So I think and I'm not sure about the timing of this based on what Belinda said and what you said, Tina, the timing to have a conversation. There was not a conversation after that presentation. And I don't know if EJN has plans. I don't know if anybody knows if they have any plans to have more conversations around their report or not. We did talk when we met with the chief. He talked a little bit about sort of the data and collecting the data, and some of the misunderstanding about data and how they have to list things. And he gave me a much broader understanding of some of the things that are going on, and a lot of the mental health issues that the police are having to deal with, and so I think that data didn't represent everything. So I agree with you, Jen, but I'm not quite sure where it goes. But
Cynthia.
I think what's clear is that, as Jen has observed, there are the hardened positions, and we can all see the problem fairly clearly about the lack of communication and maybe different understandings of police work. But what's not clear is how to address this. And it's almost, I think, what happened with the schools when we tried to do that community input, where they wanted to be able to present what was already going on in the school system with the equity work before having the interaction with people. It ended up taking too long, so that there never was the interaction. But there's always that, how do you let people know what's going on, and how do you find a place to have the authentic dialogue? The only thing that I was at recently that I thought was really helpful, and we had talked about having Denise Garlick involved. She came to the Clergy Association and did a short program about what's going on with the police reform laws. And one of the things she explained, which I'm sure Belinda knows very clearly, is for each of those laws, there's a commission, and they have to spell things out in order to put it into laws that are going to spell out what the specifics of what the police department will do, and that's kind of hasn't happened yet. But she went on to talk about things like, well, can you reimagine how policing works in terms of mental health issues, and talked about some pilot programs in Boston or some other places where a social worker is riding with a police officer. There were a number of things that I thought, wow, this is really interesting, and could begin to there might be a way we could do a program that addresses some of the current issues without being at the place somewhere in the fall of knowing exactly what it's going to look like.
Katie.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo a point, Jen, that you made about, I guess from my perspective, I hear a lot of interest in having community conversations and events and forums. And when I dig into the details of them, it turns out that it's actually 10 different events and 12 different forums, either, you know, coffee with a police officer, one-on-one, to really like be able to pick somebody's brain and say, like, what is it like to be a police officer? And what is it like to be a Black resident? And this is how I feel about police. You know, there's that. Then there's, you know, a broad form around state police reform, or the select board, you know, processing all of the policy recommendations before them around policing that have come from Nuari, that have come from the Natasha Tidwell report out of the Marvin Henry incident, that have come from EJN. So the chief will be on a select board agenda in June to talk through kind of his perspective on a lot of those policies. That is not the community conversation, so I don't want to imply that it is, but I guess my suggestion or recommendation is, I think because there is a lot of interest, but it is nebulous and needs to be defined. I think the chief's been giving it some thought. Kate and I have been giving a lot of thought. Jen, you've been giving it some thought. So I think maybe a path forward could be, you know, could we put together a planning committee like we had for the Over Zero workshop, where we have 1 or 2 HRC members who want to be involved, so that we're co-creating, you know, a series of events, or what the type of event is, because I worry that whatever event we put on, we have to be very clear up front what the goal of it is, what it is and what it isn't. Because if you ask 12 people what they want to talk about related to policing, you're going to get 12 different answers. So I think if the group's open to it, it would be helpful for me maybe if people self-identified, if they would want to be on a planning committee for what an event might be, and then we can try to start fleshing that out as the chief has those conversations with the select board around policy issues, as you know, hopefully we can meet in person, etc.
I like that idea, Katie. I do. I like being able to draw on a lot of different angles to try to put this together. I know we it's a year later now, and you know, I can appreciate people's frustration with feeling like they haven't been able to do the kind of talking that they wanted to. And I don't know if there are other communities that have had these discussions that maybe we could model or something. And I know everybody comes at it with kind of their own agenda. But I just think the reason, or just because we don't know the answers to all the questions yet, is not a good reason to me to keep putting off trying to do something. Because I think that it's something, that one particular issue is probably the thing that I get the most feedback on from other Needham residents. I don't know if that's what your all's experience is, but that tends to be what I end up getting a lot of emails and calls about.
Amelia.
I think setting the tone, not just having a goal, but setting a tone for that conversation. And I think what is absolutely critical is a facilitator. I've been attending Voices in Unity series, and Gary, I forgot his last name, is just fantastic. He really keeps it constructive and positive. My concern is whenever we have a discussion about police, it's going to be putting the police in this, if they're part of the conversation, putting them on the defensive. and how can you avoid that? How can you get down to the facts and just talk about, as we did, as Marlene and Cynthia and I did with John, just, well, here's this episode. And then he gave his point of view and we gave our point of view. And it was it was respectful, and it was just normal for us to have that conversation and set that kind of tone, I think would really be critical, or it's going to turn out as the presentation by EJ at the select board meeting, where it's, people being put on the defensive, and you're not really changing other people's minds or getting them to listen or to understand points of view.
I think that is one of the unfortunate pieces of it to me, because I don't think that it needs to be, NPD on the defensive. I wish that, I hope that we can figure out a way to frame the conversation that doesn't feel like we're attacking the Needham police, because I don't think that serves anybody's purposes. And I think that, to me, it's more, if we can talk about this not as responsibilities that haven't been met, by the Needham police specifically, but like by our community, in terms of trying to think about how race impacts policing in our community without, I'm not saying it very well, but without saying, let me give you a specific example. When EJN went after all that data to try to put it together and get the information, I feel like it's been framed like, as some kind of, something that Needham police should have been doing but hadn't been doing, and so shame on them. And I don't think that that's really the message that I took away from it, because I feel like 5 years ago, this wasn't something that we were all thinking about. And so to me, like, the fact that they dug it all up and kind of got everybody thinking about it was such a positive thing, because now we have something to grow from. And it's like, I didn't feel like I heard the chiefs ever say, like, we don't want to share this information with you. It was more just like, what, we haven't aggregated it this way, and like, now we can, and now we will. So like, that to me was such a positive thing that has turned into like such a, I don't know, a place of to argue about it, or to disagree about it. But really, it actually, to me, was such a moment of growth for the whole community, as opposed to just like, something saying like, oh, NPD should have been doing this and should have been doing this. Like, that, I think that they owned that it wasn't something that was being kept track of. But like, this is great that we're all now on the same page to try to keep track of this.
Does anybody else have any other comments or thoughts about this?
Well, I'll just say, I think I like Katie's idea also, of, pulling something together, and we would be part of it. And it could be done tactfully and not defensively, because and really presenting the positive. There's so much positive that the police do, and not just focus on what people aren't happy with, but also to start out with, the old sandwich technique. You talk about all the good stuff, and then you got the slice of bologna in the middle. And so that's maybe some of the stuff you don't like so much. And then at the end, because our community would not be the way it is and feel as safe and supported as we do without the good job that the police is doing. Are they perfect? No. And the chief said that to us. He says, no, they're not perfect, but who is? None of us are perfect. We're all human. So if we could have a forum like that, I do fear a bit about who might show up, who might be a bit not as respectful as I would want people to be, or as I know everyone on this screen would be. That concerns me a little bit, but I think we have to have voice for those people. And, the League of Women Voters does a terrific job. And when they run their programs, they have a very specific protocol. And so they don't get some of those more vicious comments.
Right. That does concern me as well, especially since we're trying to develop these bridges of trust to get some things done. We all have a common goal. So maybe next steps, Katie, we can talk about, flesh out your ideas more, and figure out who wants to work on putting together some workshops. The best way to do it, definitely the tone, Amelia, I agree with you completely. We need to make sure that we're setting the right tone so that this is a respectful and constructive conversation. Does that sound good? Okay. Jen, do you feel like those are good first steps?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, I think that, respectful and constructive conversations are certainly our goals, but I also think that we need to be careful in that we are, ready and open to hearing people's anger and frustration too, because I think that that's part of honest dialogue. And I think that if we couch it too much, that people think we're not really being genuine in our invitation to talk. So that's all I'll say. But Katie, I'll be on your committee if you want.
Also to look at what's been done in some other communities, because this is pretty common, the kind of frustration and anger people have, and the police departments are stuck without having all the guidelines to change. So maybe some of us can do that too.
Okay, great. Anything else on this? Okay, Katie, I'll touch base with you on how to move forward and how we want to start thinking. Jen and I, we can talk too about just framing and organizing and making sure that it's, we're trying to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Great.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. We're down to almost 9 o'clock. We didn't approve the minutes. I completely missed that. So can we do that quickly before we end the meeting? There are a couple. I know there are a few things on here. The general statement of condemnation. Amelia and I have been working on that, but I can push that to the next. We can push that to June. The joint sessions, I would like to touch on briefly, but we can also push that to June because we're meeting again in a couple of weeks. And then Juneteenth, we do need to discuss. Also the Amity Day. Okay, so minutes. I got Cynthia, I did get your edits. Those have been made. Does anybody else have any? I didn't hear from anybody else, so I'm assuming the minutes looked okay to everybody else. Jared and Sophia, thank you guys very much. Those were great.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to, oh, Amelia?
I think we have to vote, don't we, on the minutes?
Yes, we do. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I
I
move.
move. Okay,
Second, okay. Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Amelia,
Yes.
Ashok.
I wasn't at the meeting, so I'll abstain.
Okay. Jared,
Yes.
Bud,
Yes.
Marlene,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The minutes from our last meeting are approved, and I will submit those to be posted to the town clerk. So we'll push the statement of condemnation to the next agenda. We've been meeting, there's sort of this like group that's been organically forming. It's EJN, NDI, HRC, just to talk about collaboration. You know, I was not very familiar with either one of those organizations, so I reached out to a few people just to introduce myself again and figure out, you know, obviously we're working on a lot of the same projects, same goals. One of the things that came up at the NDI meeting yesterday was and this is something Cynthia wanted to discuss, the Race for Amity Day, which is coming up on June 13th. Cynthia, did you want to discuss that?
I think that we don't need to do anything because people came forth from the NDI, and because of the pandemic, it's not going to be in person. It will be a pre-recorded bunch of videos that will be fabulous, and it will be released on Race Amity Day, which is Sunday, June 13th. And they're not really asking for us to be sponsors, so more, but we should support it. So that's it.
I did volunteer to bring this to the select board to see if that it was something that they would, the town would actually declare Race Amity Day in Needham, which the state of Massachusetts has already done. I don't think that's going to happen before this year's Amity Day. So just to let you know that that's part of the process, and I'll be reaching out to you, Katie. I already shot an email to Marianne just to figure out how to get the ball rolling with that and how to petition the board for Race Amity Day in Needham.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? No. Okay. Juneteenth. Katie, did you want to discuss? We had discussed a little bit about it, but what were your thoughts on Juneteenth for this year?
Sure. Just the coming out of, I was talking with Marianne and coming out of the Nuari session. So Juneteenth, this is the first year that it's officially a state holiday. And so Marianne had asked if I could bring it to this group and see if HRC had interest in organizing something a way to celebrate or observe the day. I'm not aware of anything that happens in the community. So if there's a void, I think the question for this group is, do you want to pull something together for it?
Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? Amelia.
Cynthia, we touched on that at the NDI meeting? Were they putting something together? I'm wondering if we should collaborate with.
What they said is the World of Wellesley was going to do a Juneteenth thing this year, so they weren't able to be part of the June 13th Race Amity Day. For a number of years, it's been jointly with Wellesley and Needham and going back and forth for the hosting. 1 year at Wellesley, 1 year at Needham. So no, they weren't planning to do something. And I think Tina had indicated that the town was asking us whether we would do something. And I tried to find what it was that World of Wellesley was doing, but it's not on their website yet that I can find.
Marlene.
I have something funny to tell you that they're on a Needham Facebook post just this evening. There's been a whole conversation about, is Needham doing anything? And they said, no, I would doubt it. And someone else says, well, I think you're wrong. And someone wrote, HRC is doing something. So even though this is the first time we're talking about it, somebody has a message that we're doing it. So I just thought I should let you all know that.
All right, that's fantastic.
Shucks, did you start that rumor?
Didn't have enough time to do
that.
that.
I had mentioned at the NDI meeting last night that we were discussing it at the meeting today, just comparable to this sponsorship, but I don't know, it's like playing telephone. Well, maybe we could do something comparable to, at the very least, I know everybody's stretched to the limits right now, to what's happening with Amity Day. That NDI is putting together. I mean, at least put something together that's virtual for people who may
like like a 30-second or 1-minute public service announcement that was like a very basic, like, what is Juneteenth and why are we celebrating it, that we could maybe,
Yeah, and have somebody read Emancipation Proclamation.
like, just a public awareness campaign, because I'm gonna bet that there's a good amount of people in Needham who are not necessarily knowing what that is.
That's correct. Yeah.
I see Katie smiling.
Are you guys already doing that?
No, I mean, we're asking you to do whatever you feel is right. I was smiling because I think it's a really smart idea.
So put something out on our website, our Facebook page. Do we want it? Is anybody thinking of doing anything? Should we do an in-person event?
Maybe
Marlene?
a spot that could go on the Needham channel or something.
I'm wondering if there's anybody else who's done something in the past that we could just sort of lift and make our own, so that we don't have to, because there's not a lot of time.
There's not a lot of time.
I mean, what is this, May 20th? It's not a lot of time. So, and I think trying to get.
Harry could do a TikTok. How about that?
I think virtual is fine, especially because we don't have a lot of time.
But somebody has to pull it together.
Yes, somebody has to organize it.
Does anybody know when it is, what the date is?
June 19th, and then you put it together and get Juneteenth. That's where it comes from.
And that's a
I
Saturday.
just looked it up.
It's the day before Father's Day.
I just looked it up online, and just, it basically says, what is it? Why is it important? And, we could probably just lift something from, I just Googled it, and there are a few things we could probably just lift from there and say what it is and why it's important.
So if it's a state holiday, there must be a proclamation or something that we could, use that from the state too.
Okay, here's the statement that I just saw online. Hang on, let me just read it. Today marks Juneteenth, the oldest known celebration honoring the end of slavery in the United States. And though many of us, myself included, may just be learning about the significance of this holiday, it's important to take time to recognize its place in American history and reflect on the long struggle of equal rights and how far we have to go. I think that's a great statement. I don't know what anyone else thinks about it.
I think it is an interesting story, at least a lead into why it's important and why it should be acknowledged and what it is.
Yeah.
If just preparing a statement and disseminating that, another way might be to get something in the Needham, is it the Needham Times or Hometown Weekly? Although you have to pay for that to have a flyer put in or something put in. And we have our media sources. I wonder if we could, if anyone has suggested that people do something that day in honor to show their acknowledgement of, I remember when during the pandemic, people were putting lights in their windows and they were doing specific things, putting teddy bears in the window at the beginning to console people and to send a message. I wonder if we could think of something to recommend that people do who share.
That would be nice.
It's a nice idea.
So should we brainstorm in the next week and put ideas to Tina?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And I'll send some stuff that I found on this website where it says, why is it important? It marks, and it's a reminder that nobody is free until everybody is free. I mean, there's some good content on this website I found.
Sounds good, Doug.
What if we did like a countdown starting June 1st, like 19 days till Juneteenth, and each day on the Facebook page, we could post a fact or an article or something like that about it, that maybe people. What's that, Fred?
Yeah, that would be good. And for example, I mean, I'm continuing to go through this website. How should we celebrate it? Supporting Black businesses, sharing Black people you admire, educating yourself on Black history, taking time to rest, celebrating freedom, and using your voice to spread love. I mean, stuff like that, you know, we could be, you know, we can lift some of the stuff that looks really good.
But I feel like you're volunteering for this.
I'm happy to, you know, I'm happy to start putting some stuff together, and then I'll send it to Tina and see what she thinks.
It's great. It's a good ideas.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. And we will echo and promote any and all that you come up with.
Oh yeah, Cindy can do whatever we have. She can promote it, right?
Yep.
To say Needham acknowledges this day is very important statement.
Mhm.
Okay, do we want to come up with a statement, an HRC statement that we want to release on our own?
Sure.
Just
why
talking
not?
about why it's important.
Yeah, why not?
But if there's already a state proclamation, we might be able to say we endorse
Okay.
that and are looking for ways to bring this home to Needham.
Okay.
If we can plagiarize what Bud just shared,
Yeah, we
that
could.
would be great.
It's called, excuse me, Amelia, it's called research.
Oh,
Okay, Bud, you and I will touch base.
Sounds good.
Can we pre-approve a statement without having to get into a problem? Can we approve the sentiment and that we will delegate the chair along with Bud to come up with the actual wording of the sentiment?
Katie?
I don't know. Are we allowed to do that?
I'd recommend against it just until you have that broader conversation about a general statement of condemnation. So
this is happening before our
cleaner
next meeting.
if you use a pre-existing statement.
Yeah, so that's why I suggested the proclamation statement.
Yep.
So why can't we say, yes, why can't we use the state's proclamation statement and we could vote to sign that now? Bud, can you find us that really quickly?
I was trying to find it. Go back to it.
Let me see if I can find it.
I've got a whole bunch of things here. Just find one.
and hopefully we could connect with Needham Times 2 weeks in advance. So we might twist our arm to have something in the newspaper.
Is that their deadline, their
Well, you have to start at
lead
least.
time?
At
It's a
least
2 week, okay.
I just sent it to the group.
Found it?
Yes.
Okay, I found it too. It was became Governor Baker. It was in 2020 that the governor signed it into law. The law adds Juneteenth, Independence Day to a list of holidays. And in signing it, Baker wrote that the law establishes Juneteenth, Independence Day as an annual state holiday in order to recognize the continued need to ensure racial freedom and equality.
And he also says Juneteenth is an opportunity to recommit ourselves to the goal of creating a more equal and just society, an effort that continues today.
And the NAACP Boston branch said, commemorating Juneteenth is an important acknowledgement of the sacrifice of formerly enslaved Black people in this country and a reminder of the ongoing racial justice work needed the promise of freedom to be a reality for all of us. maybe if people like that one, maybe we could just adopt that.
That would be a good idea, and then follow up with suggestions to do something.
Yeah, things people can do, but I kind of like the statement from the NAACP.
Yeah.
The Massachusetts one.
Do we want to vote on?
I was going to make a motion that we
Vote.
that we use this the NAACP statement as our proclamation of the importance of commemorating Juneteenth.
Fine with me.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Marlene,
Yes.
Amelia,
Yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Ashok,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Bud,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So we have approved the statement, the NAACP statement on Juneteenth. Marlene, could you just send that to me, please?
Yeah, but Belinda just sent us the proclamation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We just got an email from her. Is that better?
Let's take a look. Oh,
It's a lot of whereases. Well, I mean, the last statement might be, whereas on this day in hundreds of communities across the country, people of all races, nationalities, and religions join hands to acknowledge the painful history and lasting systemic impact of slavery and racial injustice in the United States. Juneteenth is an opportunity to recommit ourselves to the goal of creating a more equal and just society, an effort that continues today.
yeah, we don't have to quote the whole thing. That will be enough.
Yeah, that's the last, I don't know if people were able to access that, but
Yep.
that's the last paragraph on the proclamation from the state of Massachusetts.
I like that.
And then you could have a link to the proclamation itself, so if anybody wanted to read that.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, we could post it.
Along with a lovely seal from the state.
Okay, so do we need to revote then on this bit? Because we just voted for the NAACP.
Yes.
We do need to revote.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have, well, is this the way we want to go? Do you want to switch to the state proclamation?
Maybe you could use both.
It's a good idea. What if we vote on both and then we put it together? If we voted on both, then we can decide how to put it together.
Okay, great.
Katie likes that. Okay, so I move, because I moved to the election, that we use or accept the last paragraph of the, or just let's say the whole thing, the proclamation, the Massachusetts State Proclamation about Juneteenth Day.
Can I have a second? Amelia, okay. Let's vote. Marlene,
Yes.
Amelia,
Yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Ashok,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Bud,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So the use of the state proclamation for Juneteenth has been approved. Okay, great. So we'll mash them up and then we'll come up with some action items and we can post on Facebook, get in touch with Needham Times, and pass on our file to Cynthia so that she can, or Cindy, so that she can post on our behalf through the town.
And I would suggest we also send it to other organizations like NDI, other groups in town. Voices in Unity would be a perfect place to send it. The schools, I think, you know.
So all right, if you could come up with a list, if one of you could just come up with a list to send me, just to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Then I can just disseminate all of the information at once.
Yeah, I'll send you something.
Okay, great. Thank you. If we could just quickly get through reports. Katie, do you have anything?
Nothing for me. Thanks.
Belinda?
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you for sending the state proclamation. Jared and Sophia?
Nothing, I don't think.
I don't think anything.
Jen? For Real Coalition, do you still need somebody for tomorrow morning?
I cannot go. I mean, it's not a huge deal if nobody can go.
I think I emailed you. I can do it from 9 to 9:45.
I think that, I mean, probably pretty interesting, but I know you probably are pretty meetinged out. So
Send me the information. I'll jump on.
thanks, Tina.
Okay. We have a meeting scheduled for June 17th. Do you want to meet in July and August? Okay.
Also, I think I mentioned this like at the beginning of last meeting, but only some of us were here. So this is my last meeting. I'm not able to make next meeting. So after that, I guess, you know, I won't be able to come.
Thank you, Jared, for everything.
We'll
Yeah,
miss you.
thank all of you.
Congratulations to both of you guys for graduating, and
We look forward to your future
College.
endeavors.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marlene.
I just was going to make a suggestion, if we don't want to meet in July and August, that we meet only if necessary.
Right.
Like if we need an emergency meeting. So just kind of keep that in case, you know, who knows what's going to happen.
Oh my
Right,
God.
and in the format we've been using with, you know, Zoom, if we need to meet on an emergency basis, we certainly could.
Katie.
But hit on exactly what I was going to bring up, which is our ability to meet entirely remotely is tied to the state of emergency related to COVID. And that is being rescinded as of June 15th. So the select board over the next few weeks is going to be actively working on what our policy options are locally. And we're also waiting for a lot more guidance or potential changes at the state level. So I guess I'd just say at this point, we should anticipate that the June meeting will be all in person, but we'll be putting out more guidance to all boards and committees. It is a daily fluctuating situation right now.
Oh, wow.
What if somebody doesn't feel comfortable meeting in person?
Wear a mask.
Or if you haven't been vaccinated for whatever reason, or your children haven't been vaccinated and they're not eligible to be vaccinated, what happens? I'm assuming everything's still going to be social distance and mask wearing.
We're going to be discussing all of that. So I don't have answers.
So let's assume we're going to meet in person on the 17th. So do we have a room? We usually meet in town hall.
What room do you guys usually meet in?
Highland room.
I've never been here in person. Highland.
I think it's the Highland room, isn't it?
But there wouldn't be enough room to social distance there because we're used to being right next to each other around the table.
Well, I don't think we are going to have to social distance.
According to
No,
the
it's fine.
state, right, according to the state, you're not going to have to.
But if as somebody was saying, you know, you have relatives, so you can still pass the
Right.
you can still transmit the virus, and you may have people in your life who aren't or
Are
can't
immu-
fully vaccinated, and so you do not want to be in that kind of situation, so.
I agree, Cynthia, because people are immune compromised too. So
Yeah, for
all
lots of
these,
reasons.
broad generalizations are, are great for the general public, but there are a lot of things going on still that people are concerned about.
So Katie, when you guys get more clarification, could you just send it out and then we just need to decide?
We can
People-
meet upstairs. That's a huge room. If we could reserve that room.
Yeah, the select board will be, we'll have to reach out to all boards and committees when we have more clear guidance for everyone.
I mean, a lot of places, like even my school, are allowing you to do either. So even though some parts of the department might be meeting in person, they're also allowing those to Zoom in who aren't comfortable. So I wonder if maybe the town would consider something like that.
Yeah, we're working on both the legal issues and technology equipped to be able to support committees in doing that. So,
Wow, that's a big job. Whew.
Big job.
So I guess we all join in saying, goodbye and good luck to Jared. And you've been with us faithfully for 3 years. Just, I think, a record for students being with us. It shows your deep level of commitment, and it's been a real pleasure to have you be with us.
And thank you to all of you. I've had a lot of fun, and it's been really great to be on this committee, and to get to know all of you and do all this work.
Good luck to you, Jared.
And Sophia, will you be able to be with us next month, or do you know?
I don't know. I might be able to, since I'm not going very far at all, so I'll be home a while, but I'll have to see what's going on.
Thank
So
you
then-
both.
So then we might have to say goodbye to Sophia too at the same time, who found us through one of our programs and brought her mother, and it's all been very wonderful.
Well, it's been really great being here and getting to talk to everybody, especially recently with the town elections. That was just such an awesome experience to get to meet and talk to everybody and really engage with my town for the first time, because I'd never really paid attention to any of that sort of thing. But I realized how important this stuff is. So I stuck around to talk to you guys still.
And if you have a chance, Sophia's artwork is on display in what used to be Lisa's, and now there are storefronts that are showing art. And
Really?
and so Sophia's artwork is there.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Does anybody else have anything else?
I call
Can
for
I-
adjournment.
Yeah, okay, great. Can I have a second to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Okay, Marlene,
Yes.
Amelia,
Yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Ashok,
Yes.
Jen, Julie.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Bud.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a yes. Thank you guys very much. I'll be in touch with all of you, to-do lists, all of that stuff, and I'll see a few of you on Tuesday.
Thank
Great
you.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
We
Thank you guys.
got a lot done tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.